Welcome to Season 2, Episode 1 of the AusCannaPodcast. I'm your host, Christina McMullen, and I'm thrilled to have you join me as I kick off a brand new season. On today's show, I'm sitting down with Alice Davy. Alice, who's living with stage 4 endometriosis and multiple sclerosis, is a single mother to 2 young boys and is a remarkable advocate for cannabis reform and a passionate voice for women's and children's health. She's also an active member of the Let Patients Drive campaign in Victoria. The campaign by the Legalized Cannabis Party is calling for medicinal cannabis to be treated the same as all other prescribed medications, meaning drivers should not be prosecuted if they take their medication as directed by a doctor and they are not impaired while driving. Lucky for me, we recorded this episode the day after some major news about the campaign was announced. Before we get started, y'all know I like to kick off every episode with some rapid fire questions, and that's not changing in Season 2. However, this season, I want you, the listeners, to be more involved. So if you have a question for the rapid fire segment, please email it to me. You can find my email in the show notes. If I use your question on air, you'll get a shout out and an AusCanna sticker pack. Honestly, what could be better? Anyways, let's get this show on the road and jump right into some of those rapid fire questions to get to know Alice better. So I like to start every episode with some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
You ready?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
To take away pain and suffering.
Oh, that's like a deep one. I like
It's
it.
a big one.
I like it though. What's the strangest thing you've ever eaten?
What's the weird? Did you say weirdest or strangest food?
Just weird in any sense of like.
Oh, I got it.
There you go.
Raw potato.
Oh, you eat potato raw. That's a
Yeah,
little weird. That's
it
a little
is.
weird. Okay. Can I ask why? Like, is it like
I
a
have no
crunch
idea.
factor?
It's been in my family for like 3 generations. My nana, my dad, me, and one of my children.
You just guys all eat raw
Salt,
potato?
lots of salt, and like a piece. We don't sit there and eat like whole potatoes, but if you're cooking with potato and you cut some up, bit of salt and you eat it. And I never met anyone outside my family that did it until like a year ago, one of my good friends.
Like white potato? Like regular
Yeah,
or
Rob's,
like
yeah, and
sweet, like
he's
sweet
also
potato? What?
on the spectrum. I'm like, okay, maybe there's a thing here. No, just white potato. Weird.
That is a little weird. I'm gonna give it to you. That is a little
Yeah.
weird. All right. Okay. Fair enough. All right. Yeah, that is a little weird. But now I'm like oddly tempted to try it the next time I'm like
And it's good
cooking.
once you do.
Just a little bit of salt.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna report back.
Okay.
What's your guilty pleasure song?
It's got to be Luke Combs and Ed Sheeran. Life Goes On.
Okay.
Love it.
Flavored rolling papers or plain?
Oh, plain, but flavored tip.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay. All right. See, I'm if it's shit weed, it's got to be flavored papers. But if it's good, if it's quality, then I want to taste what I'm
Yeah,
consuming, and so that
exactly.
it's
Yeah.
plain.
But I don't always use the filter, like if it's the high THC that I haven't found a product that tastes great yet. So sometimes I'll use it. But yeah, otherwise just plain.
Just plain. All right, I
Yeah.
like it. Pet cockatoo or pet kookaburra?
Oh, kookaburra for sure.
100% cockatoos
Yeah.
are such cheeky assholes.
Yeah. Kookaburra too.
Exactly. What's the worst fashion trend you've ever followed?
Like the stiletto sneakers that are now back on the shelves. So I probably wore them when I was 10, when the Spice Girls did it. And then it was completely out of fashion for 20 years. And then now that's all the kids are wearing. So
It's
never again. Nope. What are you doing?
it's pretty on point now. They are coming back in a trend. I'm gonna give it
Oh
to
my gosh.
you. What is your go-to munchie?
Celery sticks with lots of salt. It's a theme.
I was gonna say it's a theme with you. Crunchy salt.
Salty. Yeah.
Yeah, all right. No peanut butter on it?
Mm,
No? Okay.
nope.
I think that's a North American thing that we do peanut butter and celery.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I
then
think I tried it once. I'm like, that's not really what I was expecting, but not for me.
I used to put raisins on it too.
I've seen that on top
Yeah.
of the peanut butter.
Yeah, called it ants on a log. Gave it to my
Yeah.
kid when he was little. Loved it.
Loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we would jazz it up every now and then and do celery with cream cheese and
No way.
craisins. And then I
But
would
did it
call
just all mix? Like, was it just great?
yeah, but those were
Crunchy, salty, so like everything's in there.
yeah, they what I'm trying to think. We called them ladybugs stuck in the snow. Canadian and all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That is so good.
yeah, same thing though, like crunchy and
Yeah,
yeah. Mm. See, now I want to go have one now.
yeah. See,
Yeah. Okay, staying focused, staying focused. What's your favorite emoji?
mm, this one so cliche, but
The
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 heart with
heart.
the hands.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's not cliche. It's a good one
isn't
though.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but like everyone does it now and loves it. But I just think it's better than a love heart. I think it's more direct and
It's more
yeah,
personal. It's more
personal. That's
personal.
the word.
There
Yeah.
you go. Um, if you could time travel, where would you go? The past or the future?
Mm. Past.
What's your spirit animal?
Oh, my actual spirit animal. I have no idea.
If you could pick one?
A wolf. I think it's yeah. I think that's actually in line with my actual spirit animal for my horoscope. But yeah, wolf for sure.
For sure. What's the most ridiculous fact you know?
Mm, that bats hang upside down to sleep.
What's your favorite dad joke?
These are not easy.
They are easy,
No, they're
man.
not.
You know what's
Like,
funny? You know what's funny is that this season, like last season, I did do a lot of this or that kind of
mm.
questions. Whereas this season, I was like, no, I'm going to do a little bit more like
Oh
you got to
gosh,
think
dad jokes
questions.
yet. There's no dads in my house. There's
So I
you
let you
know,
down, girl. I should have had you on first season because then you could have just had
really?
is your favorite color green or blue or do you like daytime or nighttime? And it would have been
That's
easier
good.
for you.
Yeah,
Sorry,
no,
I've let you
dad.
down.
You have. I look up a dad joke. Like, honestly, I don't. Like, if I see a meme, I'd be like, yeah, that's a cool dad joke or a video. But I'm like, me? Hold on.
You don't have like a breaking case of emergency cheesy joke that you tell?
Mm, no. Wow, I'm a very boring participant on your podcast here.
It's okay.
Gosh,
You're ready.
like my
Here's
eldest would
my
say sometimes, oh, Mom, you got no sense of humor. I'm
you're
like,
ready.
I did once.
A long time ago. You ready? Here's my cheesy like dad joke, my like breaking case of emergency if I need a
Mm.
joke. How do you get a tissue to dance?
You put a little boogie in it.
Exactly.
See, when people say them, like, they're horrible. That's probably why I haven't retained all of the ones that I've heard over the years
Yeah,
because
which
the jokes are so bad.
they are. They're horrible. They're just so
Oh, I should have
bad.
used that one. I will now.
Now you see, now you'll have it locked and loaded
Yeah.
every time you need it. You're like, actually, I've got a joke for
Actually,
this
I do have
situation.
just one.
Just one joke for this
I'll bring out of
situation.
the archives for you.
There you go. You're like, actually,
Mm.
I've had this joke for a while and I knew I would have a moment to play it Come
Yeah,
closer and allow me to tell you all about it.
very true.
I love
Oh,
it. Okay. All right. Whew. So, Alice, for those of the listeners who don't know anything about you, do you mind just giving us a brief little bio about yourself?
yeah. I am a 34-year-old single mother of two boys. Um, they are 12 and 3, so they're a lot. I have been living with endometriosis for all of my life. It's stage 4 now, so that's great. And then I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis a few years ago, so that was also fun. Um, and I have recently gone back to school. I was studying nursing years ago, but that's just not possible with um, health conditions and young kids on your own. So I'm doing my social work degree instead. Um, and lots of other things in between all of that.
Yeah, you are. You're a busy girl.
I
Busy
am. And some
girl.
days I sit and go, wow, I've got friends that are out working every day and or I just see other people that look like they're doing more. And then if I speak to somebody, it's like, you're doing a lot or you're busy. And then I have to take a step back and go, yes, I actually am.
Yeah, I was going to say, because you didn't even touch on any of the advocacy work that you're
I know
doing.
that's where like I kind of left it open to instead of going down the rabbit hole of all the things that I do, we can, yeah. But no, I guess I kind of like also find um not praise, but if people go, you're doing so much in this space, or people say you help so many people with your story or whatever, it's hard for me to go like really deep down, go, I really am helping people, and then talking about it before someone else asks me a question. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
I just feel like I'm just doing
You're just living
what
your
I need to
life.
do.
Yeah,
Like
it
to
is.
if I, because the way that I see it, if I, when I was approached to do the go to Parliament for the first time, the Victorian Parliament or 2023, to first, my first real deep discussions about cannabis and where it's up to, especially in our state. And it, over all between from that to today, where there's been, I've been on a few podcasts or I'm doing a lot in the media or we do campaigns or articles or whatever it might be, it's still, I don't know. It's hard to explain. Like I've been doing it for a while and then I still go, I don't even know enough to be helping all the people that my story seems to help. I don't know it, but then if I don't do it and to say yes to, hey, Alice, can you do an article or do you want to come to Parliament? There was a time where I thought, okay, if I say no, they'll ask somebody else. But then what if there isn't somebody else? Or what if my story will help change one person's life or go, hold on a minute, I have that illness or this illness, so it's not coming together or, yeah, just share because I can, I suppose.
You share because it's a calling, if you
Yeah.
will, right? You share because it's a calling. You
Yeah.
share because you feel on some level like what you're saying, that if you don't share, what if nobody shares,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
And
And
I don't
then
think I'm going to be someone that, you know, changes the world or I don't see myself like that, but it is, you're right. Like we're clearly it's doing good and not bad. So then why wouldn't I continue to not, it helps me too. Like I've been in to be able to connect with people around the country and around the world for in the cannabis space and in the disability space. And I've made friends for the rest of my life, and it's opened doors that I didn't think would ever open for me and my kids.
what inspired you to join the Let's Let Patients Drive campaign?
Well, really, it's just those connections I was talking about earlier of, meeting all the people in the cannabis space that I have and the disability space. And it was for a beautiful woman named Bree Muhammad. She worked for Astrid Dispensary, and she's off doing amazing things everywhere else in the world. But it was her who, 18 months ago put me in touch with some people, and then, I've gotten to know those people, and and B, always really thought I should be telling my story. And a few other people in my life have said, just like, you need to speak. Like, I think that you've not realized that you have a powerful voice. And if you, aim it in the right direction, the right people, I suppose, will listen. And then, yeah, just the amount of people on my Instagram that I receive messages from, whether it's like in Australia or around the world, of like, thank you so much for just sharing something about, pain or cannabis and pain, or I've gone to hospital and taken my pain medication, as in like my medicinal cannabis, with me and advocated for myself in hospital. And much to some doctors discuss an ED, I've had my cannabis every single time. So when I share those things, and I don't really think much of it other than this is a joke, and I have a voice and I'm going to fucking fight for myself. But the people that don't have a voice would be put in a situation where, okay, in a hospital setting, you're going to have to take a pharmaceutical medication, even though you don't take it at home because you're in our facility and we're helping you. So I don't give a fuck, to be honest. I take it because it's prescribed for me. So when I share little things like that on my Instagram, or I might say it to somebody else, a friend, just everyone is always, thank you so much. That gave me confidence to, go into my doctor and say that I need to have this, or whether it's before a surgery, or it's everyone in the cannabis space really just thankful that, they don't have a voice to share things or sort of step out of their comfort zone, but grateful that they find people that, yeah, I don't know.
No,
I don't like talking about myself too much, as you can tell.
It's all good. When did you realize, because you're very open about your health struggles and endometriosis and being diagnosed recently with MS. When was the light that went on for you where you were like, medicinal cannabis helps me kind of manage my symptoms, my everyday struggles better than some of the pharmaceuticals that you were being prescribed?
Yeah. So that would be, gosh, almost 5 years ago now. I was prescribed at that point, so it would have been 2019, so 2020. I was prescribed so many pharmaceutical medications that, I look back at pictures now and look at the scripts that I'd filled, and I don't even know how I was still alive. But I was prescribed the max amount of opioids a person could have in a day. This is all to take it home, mind you. Also benzodiazepines, as much as a person was allowed to take in a day. Medication for nausea, other medications to help me sleep. You name it. And all the hormones too for the endometriosis and, all the things that come with that. And I was so thin, like we're naturally thin in my family, but I was so underweight. And my beautiful dear friend, who's just had a major cancer surgery, she was on medicinal cannabis at the time. Oh, she still is. And she saw me one day and she's like, Al, you have to try it. This is like, I know you don't have a prescription for it, but I do. Like, I want you to try mine. And I thought, you know what, like, because I'd smoked twice when I was younger, and, it just left me feeling so gross. I didn't want to, I thought it was going to do the same thing. So I'm like, nope, nope, nope. But always wanted to, but it was that feeling that I got when I had smoked when I was younger. So I tried it. She left some for me to have, and I tried it. And within 2 days, I felt myself, reaching for endone and Valiums less and less, just in 2 days. Now, at that time, I had a spinal cord stimulator in my spine for pain associated with endometriosis and all these damn surgeries that I've had. So nothing was getting on top of my pain to a manageable degree until the cannabis. And I said to the friend, I said, tell me what I've got to do. Put me in the direction of a clinic who prescribes it. My beautiful doctor that I have in my hometown, she was always for it, but she said, look, I'm not in the position, I don't prescribe it myself, but I think that you should do it. So I think, when I was pointed in the right direction for a clinic, then I was on the appointment, got the script, started it. And within, I don't know, 6 months, I was not getting a prescription for many things in terms of like pharmaceutical medications. So I was still on them for at least 2 years after being prescribed medicinal cannabis. But to what degree, that would, I had a pregnancy not long after starting medicinal cannabis. I then was diagnosed with, all in those first couple of years. So besides sort of immediate treatment, after 6 months, I wasn't on the pharmaceutical medications that I was,
So you kind of just
prior.
maybe just reached for them for kind of break in case of emergency situations. Because I
That's what
know,
it was. That's what it's like. My doctors were so happy that they were, hearing from me less and less about needing, so much medication, but just grateful that, still happy to go, yeah, we can prescribe this in such a lesser amount, and you don't even need as many as your boxes as you needed before to keep in the house. And it's in case of an emergency. And that's what it's like now. But I have one pain medication, one pharmaceutical medication in the cupboard for an emergency, and it's a nerve pain medication, and that's more for my MS. So that's wild to think. 2 years ago, even 4 years ago, I had like 3 pain doctors. So I don't have one now. I
which
have
is,
yeah,
I was gonna say, which is, I think, the the common misconception people have about cannabis is that, you know, it's not necessarily this like cure, wonder, amazing drug that fixes everything. Like
yeah,
you're saying, you still had something in your medicine cabinet for break in case of emergency. Like for
yeah,
me too, I still have something in my cabinet for when I get a wicked migraine. Like it's still there, it's still break in case of emergency.
yeah,
And I think that it's a misconception with people that, oh, I'm not going to try it because, you still need something else, so it doesn't work. But in the same breath, like, girl, you just said that yeah, I have one break-in case of emergency pharmaceutical in my cabinet now, whereas before, what did you say? You had four
oh,
before, and you had
oh,
multiple doctors before.
pain. Yeah, I had so many pain doctors. I would have boxes of opiate medications, everything in the cupboards all the time, and I was prescribed it all the time. So it's like, why do I need all this in the cupboard? Like, can't take, like, what is it all even in here for to begin with? But it was the fear of living in bedbound, excruciating, massive pain for like all day, every day, but having to function because I'm a single mother with 2 kids. Um, like now, and it's also the fear, like the reason I keep the pain medication is the fear of hospitals and ambulances. I've had too many of those that I don't want to go in, I don't want to go to hospital. So that medication is for if I need to step it up on top of my cannabis, then I've got it before I have to really escalate it and go down the road of going to a hospital. But also, I think for the first, or maybe, sorry, for the last 2 years um, of why I kept medications in there as well was because the affordability of cannabis. So even though I would have one or two, sometimes three different products in my house, it was taking me a while to get understanding of how much I need every day. And so that's how many scripts I need to fill and make sure I've got that in the cupboard. And that's all good and well, but it is so expensive, as you know, as we all know. And it's a lot better than it was 4 or 5 years ago. But for a full-time single parent with disabilities, it is very expensive. So I would go without. I used to go, all right, can't afford that this week, or the kids have things that they need more than I do. So then I wouldn't fill my cannabis script. I'd run out, and then that was why I was still, even though I didn't need it when I'm on cannabis 18 months ago, I was still getting scripts for medication because I would run out of cannabis. And I think that's why it's taken me a little bit longer to get to where I am of just having cannabis, because of the cost. Like, for me, it's medication, but it's like it's a luxury, because it's not money that I have sitting around in the bank to make sure, I have my medication. Because we say, make sure if you're diabetic, if you have a heart condition, ADHD, it's like, take your medication. It will help you or alleviate symptoms or whatever it might be. But with cannabis, it's expensive, and which is also why a lot of patients can't keep up with cannabis or just having cannabis. They have to have half cannabis, half pharmaceuticals because of the cost. And like I said, it's getting better and better, and cannabis doctors and pharmacies are working with you to see, what you can afford. And now, or mine anyway, I'm so grateful for my nurses and doctors, but they will try and find products that are affordable for me. But it's still, yeah.
It's definitely an uphill battle. I mean, I literally just had a conversation the other day with a friend, and we both agreed that, $130 is kind of like the max anybody should be paying for a 10-gram tub. $130,
Yeah.
right? Like what, like
Yeah, 100%, like 100%. But I mean, I guess it's like how you have it. So whether it's oil, flour, patches, edible, like there's so many different ways, but it's like it still should be accessible and affordable for everyone that needs it. But like, say with oil, right? The 30 ml bottle, I remember 2020, a 30 ml bottle of 100 CBD was $260 to $380 for this one brand, like company's brand I was buying. Now there was nowhere near as many on the market that there is now. So it was limited options. You either paid that or you didn't have your medicine. And it's wild that now I wouldn't even see that price for a 30 ml bottle, I don't think. There's hundreds of products on the market, but
which is one of the great things about the market right now is that, there are, every day I turn around, there are new flowers hitting the market. There are new oils and various different things hitting the market. So it is great in that sense that there is some competition, which is driving the prices down. But I'm with you 100% that it should be more accessible, for sure. It should be cheaper.
yeah,
And there shouldn't be so many barriers to accessing it either, right?
100%. Yeah, I agree.
I was gonna say, what hmm, do you find that it's more challenging as a woman accessing medicinal cannabis, or do you think that it's just in general, it's just sometimes there's a lot of hoops to jump through?
Yeah, I don't believe it's harder because I'm a woman. I think it is hard, like being a woman, I think it is hard for everybody. And you know, the more roadblocks with cannabis that we seem to get through, it's like 10 more pop up in the way. I don't know if you saw ABC on Friday. Apparently it came out 2 weeks ago, but ABC News reported something on Friday on their Instagram page that it's come out that a doctor from the Australian psychiatry, whatever it is, I'm not going to say even the term because I didn't even care to read the whole of his whole title, but he was claiming that there has been an increase of people presenting to emergency departments, people that are on cannabis and they're having psychotic episodes. So they've got psychosis. Now, there is no data for that. There's just someone coming out saying, nope, all these people are having psychosis. They're all on medicinal, like prescribed medicinal cannabis, and trying to put a roadblock there of, well, we're not going to prescribe it. And I understand that when you're a psychiatrist and you're working with people with severe mental health conditions, yes, cannabis is not for everyone. So you have to, work with that patient. But just coming out to a news station that there has been an increase in people presenting with psychosis that are prescribed medicinal cannabis is exactly what they want to do to deter everything good that is happening in the cannabis space for patients. And basically, the way that I see that and I read the message is we do want you to continue with pharmaceutical medication. So we advised against it, even though we haven't done the data. There's no data on that. We just advised against it because what? Like, we want you to keep, like, no. Yeah, in 2021, when I gave birth to my second child, and I don't speak about this really anywhere besides my social media and to a certain degree, but when he was 6 weeks old, I presented to the emergency department, and we were in our 6th lockdown in Melbourne, but I presented to the emergency department after seeing my GP with hemorrhage bleeding. So I'd been bleeding since the day he was born, and I had a C-section. I was hemorrhage bleeding, go to the emergency, and something wasn't right. My mental health wasn't right, but that I was the first person to say something isn't okay, something is not right. So I go to hospital, and I tried to have my cannabis in there, and major hospital, it was like, oh, I don't know, I don't think so, but I'd already took it before I went in. And then a specific area of the hospital was saying, okay, it was a women's part of the hospital, said, look, this is looking a little bit more like a mental health thing. She needs to go into the bigger part of the main hospital. So that's what I did. But, me thinking, why am I moving? I need to be here. I was seen by a lovely psychiatric nurse in the ED, and she's like, this woman doesn't need to be here. This is a reproductive issue. She needs to go back to the women's hospital. That happened for hours, okay? And then when I went back to this ED in the main hospital, and then by that time something really wasn't okay, I was very quickly put into a psychiatric stay, like for a couple of days, but a really crazy assessment. Now, keep in mind, I had a 6-week-old baby, and I was communicating and everything, but something just wasn't adding up. No one did a physical test on me, even turned out after that I had 2 raging infections, a UTI, and all the other things. But no one actually did a physical examination on me. No bloods, anything like that, before I was very quickly, taken to this psychiatric stay. But the head psychiatrist came in to see me because I refused to take pharmaceutical medication. So not only did they take away my cannabis while I was in this 3-day stay, even though it was prescription, I brought the whole thing with me, the letter and everything. It was not okay. They took it away and said I had psychosis from the cannabis, but it was probably postpartum psychosis because, well, just had a baby. It's easier to label it as that. So when they took away the cannabis, they didn't replace it with anything for my pain. So because I was on a psychiatric stay, it was proving difficult to even get 5 milligram of endo. So they gave me an anti-inflammatory and then tried to give me 2 antipsychotic medications in with it, like hide it in there with the Panadol. And I said, what the fuck is this? Oh, the psychiatrist prescribed it for you for XYZ. I'm like, I know what that is. I'm on mental health, medication for anxiety and whatever. I'm not taking that. But at that time, I wasn't communicating properly. It turns out it, ended up being multiple sclerosis and other things. But I was like, okay, I have to take it. The doctor's telling me, but I don't, in my head going, this isn't right. I don't need to take this. And then once I had one dose, it reacted very badly with my body, and I almost had a stroke. So I was on um, I was on a medication for a pituitary tumor. It's another condition that I live with. And this type of psychiatric medication crossed over with this pituitary hormone, medication. It can cause, depending on your age, stroke and death. So I took this medication. The side effects happened. They didn't blame it on their meds, obviously. And then when they tried to give it again to me, sort of the next day, I kind of threw it back in their face. And then when I spoke and asked to speak with the psychiatrist, and she came in and she wanted to do a whole, so tell me about your childhood sort of stuff. And I'm thinking, what? I'm here for a bleeding after I had a baby and something else isn't right, but no one's examined me and shoved me off into a room where I can't even plug a phone charger in. Like, at that point, all of my ADHD, all my sensory, everything was like, PTSD, I'm going to shut up shop and I don't even want to talk to you. But still, what you're doing is you took away my medication and you give me medication that I'm not supposed to take anyway. And then, so that happened, that first time happened. And I went back 3 times to this hospital every month with my period experiencing the same thing. So the second time I go, and I begged not to go, but they took me to this hospital. Same thing happened again. And it was, well, it's not your cannabis, but it's still the postpartum psychosis. I'm thinking, what the fuck? I've gone home for a whole month. My life's completely fine. And apparently I've got it again. So, well, not the cannabis, but we can't really give it to you in this part of the hospital. So, you can have a little bit like that sort of stuff with me. I'm thinking, what? And then they tried to hide those meds in my stuff again, just a different brand or whatever it was, but it was the same ingredient. So the third time, that this happened, I begged the ambulance to not take me to that hospital. Otherwise, I'd probably run out the back screaming because of what this hospital had done. And they were so lovely that they did take me to a different area of Melbourne and to a different hospital. And I was treated like a human being, given my medication, not treated like I had a psychiatric condition that they thought was caused by my cannabis use. And then, maybe postpartum psychosis as well. So the stories like the ABC News and this doctor coming out and saying the things that they are is actually fucking grinds it makes me so angry, but it also makes me so sad. So sad that, yes, there are people who need those kinds of medications, but for severe mental health conditions, but continuing to take away someone's plant medication that is prescribed, to take that away and give them pharmaceutical medication only, which we all know have side effects in my opinion, to a ridiculous degree, that it's devastating. That why are we still trying to put roadblocks in front of everything to do with cannabis, whether it is for pain management, whether it is driving laws, whether it's you want to grow it in your own backyard. Why are we still, if it's such a horrible plant and a horrible thing, why is it now a million people in Australia? I think it's in Australia. I'm talking about this yesterday, but I've already forgotten. 1 million people that are prescribed medicinal cannabis, but it was 18,000 in 2019. If it's so bad, and like a lot of people think it is, why are so many people on medicinal cannabis and staying on it. And we're not like, if there was data to show that people are presenting with psychosis or they are, you know, at the accidents on the road have had a huge increase, and those people, it's because they were high or because they only had cannabis in their system. Like, where is that data? It's all he said, she said at the moment. I don't know if you feel the same way, but is it?
I do feel like there isn't a lot of data to back up what they're saying, in the
Yeah,
sense that, like, you've got places like Canada, right, who've legalized. And I don't think I've read a single article out of Canada that has said, um, our death rate on vehicular accidents has risen, and there has been a direct correlation with the drivers that have caused these accidents having cannabis in their system, right?
exactly.
I've not read that anywhere, and as far as I know, isn't there just isn't that data. They're
No,
just because it
there
isn't
isn't.
there.
And then, so like yesterday in Parliament, you take those that are still skeptical, you take sort of the Labor government's approach to, all right, there isn't that data. We still need to know. That's why we need to do this trial that's going to last half a decade. And you think, there isn't that data. This is me. Look, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a qualified anything. But you don't, like, there isn't that data. Well, there is that data. There is that data that exists. There's in Melbourne, the fourth study that's already been conducted on cannabis and driving. I'm a participant in one of those trials, and the data has just been released a couple of months ago from Swinburne Uni, and they referenced that yesterday, the Labor government in Parliament, about that trial, and people are not impaired. So there was 40 patients or participants. That is data. That's data to say that it's not impairing us, or whatever the data says, and then that's what we should be working with. If it's not negative, why isn't that a good thing? Why aren't we like, sweet? So we've now done this 4 times. Let's go with the data and believe the scientists and the researchers that do this. Why do we need a $5 million trial on a road? Yes, I understand, real life, you got to have, other, like another car or fences or whatever it kind of is. What are they going to do on this closed track? Probably witches' hats or whatever. But, these trials that have been done already are in and around the world as well. Show that data that when you take this medication and the correct way, in the way that your doctor has said, and you don't drive impaired, like, what? I just get like, what are we are the governments here and around the world, are they waiting for bad data to come out, and then we go, all right, now we've made the decision 20 years later that it's no good? Like, I don't understand why we're doing it. We're wasting time and resources on shit that we already know. And it's like everyone's too scared to all come to the table and go, okay, we admit that we were wrong about it. Now that we know we're right, and let's just move along and get this done.
I've said it a couple of times, right? Like, I'm 45 and I've been driving since I was 16. I will admit, currently I drive significantly less. I'm very fortunate to live somewhere where the weather's fabulous and I can walk almost everywhere I need to go. Like, everything I need is very much within a 15-20 minute walking distance from my place. So I'm blessed in that sense. But, I've been driving for 30 years, if you will. And I've been in 2 accidents in 30 years. And in those 2 accidents, both times it was not my fault. Both times the driver that hit me was drunk.
See?
So it's something that I say every time any of those little like change.org, sign this petition, this, that, every time I fill it out, I'm always like, I've been driving for this long and I've had two accidents, both not my fault, both caused by drunk drivers.
Mm.
So there are definitely challenges on the road.
Yeah.
However, I don't believe from my 30 years experience, no, and actually, I started consuming cannabis around the same time I started driving, 15-ish, 16-ish. So
Wow. Yep. Okay.
I can say they've gone hand in hand now that I've stopped to think about it and done the
Yeah.
math. And, in those 30 years, I can honestly say, um, I don't know. And especially now my relationship with cannabis has changed, I now look at it more from a medical standpoint, and I don't really, like I said, my relationship has changed. So how I
Yeah.
consume it has changed. But I feel like most of us that take it for medicinal reasons are responsible
Exactly.
in our medication. We are responsible in our consumption. And I do feel like, oh, it's so frustrating that for whatever reason, this one medication gets singled out. Like, no, you
Yeah.
can't have it in your system. No, you can't drive. And
Yeah.
it seems ah so one-sided and such
It is
a
so one-sided. And, we are hell bent on projecting that cannabis drivers are big apps, like you mean so stoned that you don't even know where you're going and what you're doing, that everyone is going to be prescribed it, and then they're going to do the wrong thing and just get completely baked and then jump in a car on the highway and or go down the road to a friend with, like, that's not what that's, yes, there are people who will sit around and smoke it all day, and there are those bad examples that we see in the media, that, oh, there was a car accident today, a car went through someone's house, and they'll rattle off what, he was on ice, cannabis, and something else. They've always got to put that in there. And it only takes that to be on the news. People go, see, can't trust those stoners. Like, no, actually, we can't trust the ice addicts. We can't on the road. We can't trust the alcoholics on the road. But I'm telling you now, if there was an accident today in my front window, one was drunk and one had just cannabis in their system, I'm telling you now which person would be going to court, lose their license, go to prison. It would be the fucking stoner. It would be the person consuming cannabis, not over the person who's probably just come from the pub or sitting at home drinking a couple of cartons, then going, I've got to go and have a fight with a mate, or I've got to go get food because I'm hungry. I'm going to get in my car and I really don't care who I like. That's what we know. Like, and why? It's the same with any pharmaceutical drug, whether it's prescription or it's stuff that you're getting off the street. There's still more punishment for someone who's consuming cannabis.
What do you think are the most significant barriers to cannabis reform in Australia? Like, and how do we, as advocates, as people who constantly share our story and are trying to advocate for change, how do we overcome those barriers?
But I believe by continuing to tell stories and share stories, it, there was a time sort of not too long ago that, sharing your story, whether it's you had endometriosis, a disability, you did smoke cannabis, but you're a mum and you don't want anyone, don't want anyone to know, but it's changed your life and you're a great mother because of it. And, it not too long ago that was like, we talk about it online quietly in an inbox, but we won't talk about it in person. But then I think COVID, as horrible as it was, and it's changed so many people's lives, there were a couple of good things about it. And I think that over that time for adults, that time that we had nothing else to do but either be on the phone or online, my community grew and my understanding of cannabis and storytelling and everyone coming together, and then you're not feeling so alone. So that's okay, I'm going to start an Instagram page, or I'm going to go and do an article in a paper because that person, she did it over there before me, or he did. So I feel like I'm in a safe place to talk about cannabis. And I think that's why, like I get beaten down with it all the time, just going, oh my God, there's never going to be change. And what are we doing? It's all for nothing. And, it's exhausting. It really is. But change has to happen somewhere. And if we don't tell stories, and if we don't knock on the government's door pretty much with, whether it's a petition or whether it's to get it on side with a campaign or writing letters or whatever it is, if we don't do it, then nothing will change. It will be, well, we're set in our ways. This is a decision that we've made and we're not changing it because it can't affect too many people because no one's telling us about it. We just need to keep being loud, like in a constructive way. It's, I'm not an MP. I'm not a part of parliament, and I don't think I'd ever want to be because it's too much. But as advocates, as patients, we all want the same thing, and there's many, there's fights between states, and whether it's, cannabis sort of clinics, or I feel, sometimes they compete with each other, or whether it's like strong advocates that don't have the same, we don't agree on the same thing. So then we block people, or just all of that gives me a headache because it's like, but we're all on the same page, really. We all want the same change. If you are, if cannabis is part of your life, or it's a part of the life of a loved one, or whatever it might be, we really all want the same thing, but we have to be constructive in what we're, I guess, being loud about. But I think it's the only way forward, and with reform, especially here in Victoria, is if people just keep telling their stories. It's going to resonate with somebody. There's going to be someone sitting somewhere going, we listen to stories and go, oh, I don't really resonate with that one. But then another story comes along and you go, hold on a minute. I went through that, or that's what I'm going through at the moment. And that's what opens up for more telling stories and sharing experiences.
I think you're right, 100%. I think it is sharing experiences and balancing your personal experiences with your advocacy, because the more you talk from a personal experience, the more it resonates with people, because they can, you're right, they listen to your story and they're like, oh no, I experienced that same thing, or I understand what you're going through because I also went through, the same challenge, or, I faced the same, stigma or whatever it is. I think, I think you're absolutely right. Getting loud and sharing that story and sharing it, over and over again, it does eventually reach the ears of people where hopefully change does happen.
Yeah.
How do you, because you're fairly active on Instagram,
Mm.
um, how do you use your platform to raise the awareness that we're talking about?
I've had my Instagram page for over 13 years now. And then when I was diagnosed with endometriosis, I, tried to reach out and follow pages. Um, and then it came a point about 6, 7 years ago just to, really focus on cannabis and disability, and, those sorts of areas. And I, we all want to vent when we tell a story, or we have something to say. And I believe that if you say it in the right way, people will listen. So years and years ago, and I still do now, I'll still posts that are just like, fuck this, living with these illnesses and disabilities, whatever it is bullshit, or living with, waiting for driving law changes to be, amended. It's like, it's crap. But I'm still, I make it really important that if I share negative or whatever, it's still like a positive space. yes, there's space for all sorts of feelings, but not turning it into, you know, an online fight with other people or, and I've seen my fair share over the last 4 or 5 years, especially over the last 2 years. And I don't want to be another person that adds to um, someone having a fight over Instagram because you didn't agree, or it was like my way and nobody else's way. And what I post is exactly right, and no one's going to tell me any different. I make sure that it's, again, like, opens conversations for, like, constructive conversation. Like, okay, I didn't know that. Can you tell me more? Or, like, if someone comments on a post or if you put a post out, I really try to get out what I want to say or share what has been shared with me, whether it's Parliament, whether it's doctors, whatever it might be, but then still allow people to then, if they want to say something about what I've spoken about, yeah, cool, let's have a chat. Not just, I've said what I've said. I'm only coming here to say that. It's probably negative and I don't really care about your opinion. So I think that if you are, you're advocating, there is a way to do it. And that doesn't matter what you advocate about. There is a way, like constructive advocacy, or there's, what would be the other word? Non-constructive, but there are ways to, yeah, draw attention to what you're saying, but you're probably not going to get much, like, of those ears pricking up and really listening, because it's potentially someone that's just going off on a rant. And yeah, I've been known to do that a long, long time ago. And, every now and then I still might be able to do a rant, but people stop listening. So then how is change happening, or how is it, falling on those ears and staying there and then going, okay, I'm going to have a conversation about this tonight after I've heard about it or read about it. So I think the more, I don't want to say positive you can be, but, the more aware you are of what you're saying when you've got a microphone, or what you're saying when you've got a keyboard and some people listening. I think it's all about, just being aware.
I think for me, it's one of those things where, you know, science is always changing,
Yeah.
right? Things are always changing. Legislation is always changing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And, you know, while we haven't said directly, there was big news yesterday about the Let's Let Patients Drive campaign, right?
Yeah.
But I stopped myself because I was like, oh, I can't say yesterday because by the time this goes to air, it won't be yesterday,
Yeah.
right? And so for me, I think I'm constantly learning and I
Yeah.
try to genuinely stay from a position of curiosity. Um,
Yeah.
when I engage with people, I try to stay curious with them. I try
Mm.
to, I try not to get into the whole, you need to take a tea break or argument or tolerance break, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I try not to have that argument. I try to say things like, perhaps we should, readjust our relationship with cannabis or, things like that. Again, it's hard when you get thrust into a spotlight that on some level you are comfortable being in,
And then yeah,
but in other times you're not because
you're
you are
not.
you second guess what you say. You're like, well shit, if I say this, is this going to come back to bite me in the ass three
Yeah, and
months
that's what I
from
was
now?
saying, earlier, like that, I I kind of just go, look, I don't give a shit, as in not, I don't give a shit of what I'm saying, but like, oh, I'm just going to do it anyway because it's going to help someone. But yeah, like even yesterday, there were a couple of times, when I'm like, when I was speaking, we were outside Parliament, and there were some news cameras there. And, two journos were asking me some questions after Rachel and David had spoken, and then Will, another patient in the drive campaign, was out there with us, and he was his first time in front of a camera. So I was trying to there to try and make him, feel comfortable and confident and whatever. But then even when I was talking, it was still like, what if I say it wrong? Like, it's live TV, right? So it will, it gets edited and goes to a news station and it goes on the news, but it's still like, you can't really go, oh, I'm going to edit that or whatever. If you say the wrong thing, yeah, and then you've got the online community where if you put that out there and it's like, nah, that's wrong, she didn't say it right, that's false information. so I guess sometimes if I see that online, I don't have anymore. I don't have people coming for me that you got that wrong or my doctor said this or whatever, which is really good. But I guess if I see that on other people's posts, I just ignore it now in a way. Like, I don't like to ignore it and think it's, out of sight, out of mind, but it's kind of like, don't need to engage with it.
I
I don't
have a
know.
rule now. I have a rule now because um, I try to respond to everything, like every, email that I get or
Yeah.
like DM or,
Yeah.
again, I'm all over the place in the sense that I've got my Substack, I've got Instagram, I'm on Reddit,
It's
blah,
too
blah,
much.
blah. It's a lot. And so I absolutely try my absolute best to respond to everybody. And so my rule that I've had to make for myself here is engage once.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're a schmuck, don't engage again.
Exactly.
Right? Engage once. And
Mm-hmm.
like I said, it's you just gotta let it go sometimes, right? Like
Yeah.
some people, you're just not gonna change their opinion.
You can just tell. Yep.
They had
It's
a
like,
bad experience with it when they were younger, or
yeah.
Uncle Bob had a bad experience
Yeah,
with
yeah,
it, or
exactly.
whatever you're just not going to change their
Yeah. And
their their opinion. And so you just, or again, you say something that's just, I don't know, you slightly articulated it wrong, if you will, and then somebody comes back at you full vengeance with it, and you're like, no, no, that is what I was saying. And they're like, no, but you said this. And you're like, but we are saying the same thing. That's what I
that's
said.
exactly right. We're saying the same thing.
Yeah, like I
It,
said, I engage once, and then,
yeah.
if you're an
Yeah.
asshole, that's it. I don't
Yeah. I
engage
used to
again.
have to think that I had to respond to everybody and every message. Even when people go, it's okay if you take time to respond or don't or whatever, I still guilt. It's like, oh gosh, this person asked me a question. But then I got sidetracked with someone leaving a nasty comment. So then I would try and engage with that person. I'm like, hold on a minute. I'm one person that takes care of two tiny people. I cannot keep this up. So when I had my hysterectomy last year, that's exactly what I did. It's like I left a lot of that behind. Just went, you know what? You shouldn't anyway. You shouldn't be responding to hundreds of people all of the time. Like, yes, when we speak, on TV or you're standing up at an interview or somewhere actually, that you're there to advocate for the people in the crowd. I think that's different than when you're online and you see those comments come through about, cannabis. And don't it's either my doctor told me different or no, you shouldn't have whatever it might be, it I think that's okay to go, you know what, should I put all my effort into trying to change them, not change the mind, but I guess in a way, yeah, educate this one person who's hell-bent probably on not budging on what he says or she says, or do I go over to these 10 people over here in other comments that are going, this is awesome, great work, or yep, can you tell me more about XYZ, what you're talking about? Like, I think that, yeah,
It's
your way
weird.
is right. Like, one,
Yeah, I was gonna
engage
say
once.
it's weird how like what you're saying, it's you're in that room and 99 people are saying, tell me more, and this is great, and I want to learn more about it. But it's like that one person that's like, "Arr,
Yeah,
arr, arr,"
just
and
one
for
old mate just going, gotta have a bitch, gotta have a whinge about something. And
yeah,
it's like,
and I guess, I guess it comes with maturity on some level, is that
yeah,
you stop trying to have the battle with the one person and you realize,
Yeah.
my value is over here with the other 99.
Well, that's exactly right.
And,
Yeah.
again, as a mom, because I'm a mom too,
Yeah.
you energy is not Energizer Bunny. You don't keep going and going and going and going. Like I mean, I only have the one child, you've got two, but
Oh, my Energizer
other
Bunny is bouncing around after them. Like,
exactly,
and
that's what I'm
also
saying.
Energizer Bunny will burn out every day.
Like I said, but for you as a mom, like you can only put your energy in so many places, right?
Exactly.
And at some point, again, with maturity, with motherhood, with all of that, you realize, well, my kiddos are kind of my sole energy, not
Yeah.
source, but what I should be giving my energy to, right?
Well,
So it's hard to balance. At least for me, when this all kind of started, it was very hard for me to
it
balance
is.
50
Or
million
finding that.
notifications going off on my phone and people, wanting to
Yeah.
engage and wanting answers and wanting this and da 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 da. And
Yeah.
like, and I'm looking over at my teenager trying to set boundaries, with screen time, but
I know,
I'm
right?
like,
That's exactly, I
I'm
get you
glued.
on that.
And so
Um,
I was gonna say,
yeah.
how do you balance out being a single mom of two boys and your like approach with just parenting and like daily life and how you kind of balance your advocacy with everything?
Yeah. At the start, of, you know, being on, on television or news or articles or whatever, I went, I, I 18 months ago now, I did, I said to myself, I'm like, I, I don't want, I didn't even know where it was going to go. I had no idea. I thought I was just going to speak once and then that would be it. And I didn't know where it was going to go, but I did say, I don't want this to consume my life because my life is my children and me taking care of my physical and mental health. So, I still every day I make sure that, like sometimes, with the ADHD, I'll be stuck in something, like I'll be see quickly on my feed that, like that thing with the ABC News that come out with the doctor saying the psychosis and whatever. I was getting ready to go to the movies with the kids, but I couldn't let that one go, right? And I thought I need to say something about this because, you know, it's not okay. And I just saw red when I saw that video. So it was learning now to say to the kids, all right, we've got plenty of time before we go. Mum's going to go, it doesn't go down calm and quietly when it's like, mum's got to do this for a minute. Are you right to entertain yourselves? Or you one do this and one do that, because they'll end up fighting over something or whatever it might be. They're boys. But I try now to, you know, remind the kids that I like, if I set something, whether it's going to Parliament or I do a podcast or I've got to spend some time like replying to messages or whatever, most of that stuff is done while they're at school. I make sure that if I'm available to do things, it's between 9 to 5. Some things are outside of that, so I make plans. But we're a neurodivergent household, so I want everything to run as smoothly for my kids and me as possible when I do say yes to these things. And I think it's just, you learn over time what your what your your tolerance is and your boundary, and all different things. Like you'll learn how far you can be stretched and okay, I've taken on too much. And I am one to say I've made that mistake many times, but I I now, when I realize I'm getting to that point of done too much, or I'm getting very close to overdoing it, and there could be a few things on, as guilty as I feel, I will say I can't do that. I'm going to have to reschedule, because at the end of the day I need to be here for my kids. So I can't say, if it's taking too much of my energy and I'm starting to feel sick or in pain, or whatever it might be, I know what's going to come. I know that it could be 2-3 days in bed, or 2-3 days where we're not being active outside or doing a lot inside. And that is obviously completely fine. But it having a disability or a chronic illness, but it could have been prevented. And how could it have been prevented? By me not overdoing it and me not committing to so many things. So I think, you know, I've gotten to a good place, or I still have to remind myself when it's things I'm really passionate about and a topic will come up. But saying to myself, at the end of the day, you like, you are a human being, you're one person, and you take care of two little people, that it can wait, you know, because I won't be the only person talking about medicinal cannabis, and that's fantastic. I love that I can look at my phone and see something come up and go, you know what, I really want to say something about this, but I will later on. But in the back of my head, just going, I know all the other people in this fantastic space are going to be advocating, or they're going to be speaking about it. So I think it's just balancing everything at once, and just knowing, and every year will change. You know, my kids will be older. It really depends. Like my 12-year-old requires a lot more routine than my 3-year-old does. And that's completely fine. So I just have to make sure that I'm mindful, I suppose, of what everyone's needs are, which can be a lot.
It can be a lot. Talking about some of your interests and some of your passions, you said that you're into boxing and running.
I am.
Those are two
Um,
things that scare me, to be
really,
honest.
running
Yeah, I'm not a
scares me.
runner. I mean, I'll walk a million miles with
Yeah, it's like, I'll
you.
do a brisk walk, but I won't run.
But like zombie apocalypse, I'm okay. The zombies got me because I'm not running. Like
Yeah, yeah. It's
I'm
like,
not a runner. I can
yeah,
own
and
it.
there are people who aren't runners. I will never understand it because I've always been a runner. So I just don't. I love running. So it's funny when people say that, like, I can't run it, or I'm not a runner. I'm like, but how? But you know, that's everyone. Everyone is different. But no, I have run from, gosh, 6. I reckon I started competing in the school cross country, athletics carnival, just always at, you know, I was undiagnosed with ADHD for 32 years. So living with it my whole life, it was, I ran. I needed to keep moving. So always competing where I could at school, or and then, you know, running around after children after you've had them. But it for me, running is the only, besides boxing, there's 2 places, running and boxing, that clear my mind, that I make some of my best decisions on my runs. And it opens up my mind. Whereas if I was standing at home, I've got a million and one thoughts going in my head and too many distractions. When I'm running, it's me and my music, and just path that will go on forever. So not only is it great for your mental health, it's great for your body to keep moving, but also for me, it's the things that MS has tried to take away from me in the last 3 years. So, you know, I use foot orthotics like AFOs. Not at the moment because everything is really stable. But not even a year ago, I needed one for both of my feet to even walk. I was using a walking cane. And you know, those things may come and go again, but I'm at a really good place right now that I'm not using either of them. So so there's times where I can't even run, not because I don't feel like I don't want to go out and run. My body's physically saying you cannot run. So it's me trying to gain some, I guess, control back over my life and my body of running. So I just this morning I ran almost 2K, probably pushed it a little bit far, but I did 2K in 11 minutes. And that was like looking at that on the little, you know, map, just going, fuck yes, I feel good. Might be in a bit of pain later, but was it worth it? It was worth it because it was great for my mental health. And also, this is things that some doctors or science and medicine say you probably won't be able to do with MS, and a lot of the reason why I can go out and run is because of cannabis. So it all comes back to that. And then with boxing, same thing. I started doing a bit of that when I was a teenager and just on and off over the years. And I got back into that at the end of 2023. And then, around actually exactly the same time that I just started back at boxing, I think there was like a good 5 year gap. I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis in the same week. So that's in like my feet, my hands, and my fingers. So do you see like the pattern of it's
I
like this
do.
diagnosis in the world are trying to take away the two things that I love doing. So it was, all right, how do we do this? Not that I'm not going to do it. I'm going to keep doing it. So I might hurt myself if I don't, learn. And I've got great physios and all of that to help me. But boxing is not only is it great for skill and self-defense and all those things, it's fantastic for my memory. So in my boxing class that goes for 35 minutes of a morning, night, whenever you want to do it, it's intense, but you are learning combination. So it's repetitive, just something different every day, but it's repetitive. So you're learning it, and by the end of the class, you are doing this whole combination like you're in boxing, you're like Mike Tyson. And it's fantastic because I'm like, again, science and medicine are saying, you know, one of my newer MS symptoms is short-term memory loss, but yet I can I can retain. Last week it was crazy. It was 12 combinations in the like 12 what do they call, I'm blanking, but it's like 12 shots in the one combination. And that's a lot for my brain to retain.
I was just say
So
that's a lot for anybody to retain.
yeah,
12? Yeah, that's
exactly. Let alone
impressive.
someone with ADHD and MS. But
That's
no,
impressive.
I have cannabis before I go, and yes, I get a bit of pain in my hands and stuff, but things like it's not enough to stop me from doing it, and it's a great outlet as well. Both of those things, but boxing is the best.
I don't know why it never appealed to me. I like a couple of friends have said to me over the years that, I've got some anger issues that maybe I would be able to get them out
Benefit,
if I just went to boxing or something. But I don't know.
but they are true.
It's never been for me. I guess my physical activity of choice, if you will, is yoga. I've done yoga off and on since my early
Yeah.
20s, yeah, in university. And I think like what you're saying, when because I've done it for so long,
Mm,
I now know I've trained myself to such a point that when I step onto my yoga mat,
mm.
that is where I am. That is where I am
Yeah,
present. That is my I go through the motions, but if my brain wanders, I've trained it to no, you've wandered, come back to your breath,
see, that is what I
stay.
want to do yoga for.
Yeah, like
I,
stay with the flow, stay with what you're doing. And because a lot of it is balance and then doing this or pushing yourself just beyond, like it's that fine line of,
yeah,
comfort and pain, and you push yourself just to, in that area, you really do have to stay present in that moment, and you have to shut your brain off and be on that mat. And
yeah,
I think, like what you're talking about with the running and how you can go forever and it's just a path and you don't think, but you clear your mind. I think, like I said, for me, that's what yoga is.
well,
But
that's it. And like, I wish that the ADHD part of my brain would let me sit through enough yoga to do it. Because
and that's it. That's just
that's
it though.
I'm exerting a lot in what I'm doing, but with like yoga, and it's exhausting what I'm doing, running and boxing all the time. But with yoga, you're still doing all that in your head, but you're not physically, putting yourself into, well, I don't believe anyway, correct me if I'm wrong, but physically putting yourself into a drenched sweat, or you're, completely exhausted,
See, that's
what
just
you
it.
are with a
There are different types of
of yoga.
yoga,
Yeah.
right? And I personally can't do um slower yoga. Like I
Yeah,
can't
right.
do more why am I drawing a blank on it? More static poses. For me,
Yeah.
I am very much a flow yoga. I am very much
Okay, cool. Yeah.
um there's yoga called Ashtanga yoga where it's basically it's the same series over and over again, right? So it's a lot of repetition,
Yeah.
but all of the movement is with your breath. So with every breath, inhalation, exhalation, you're moving, you're
Well,
moving, you're
definitely send
moving.
me a link on that kind of yoga because it's exactly what I need to incorporate into my life.
I like it's my I used to love it in Canada because I would go to like a hot flow yoga class and it'd be like 38 degrees in the class and you would
Really?
sweat like nobody's business and then I would
Wow.
go outside and it would be like minus 30 and it
Yeah,
would be the
cool.
best feeling in the world. You'd be
Okay,
like,
yeah. See, I mean, we
"Oh."
associate yoga with, I mean, not everybody, but a lot of people would, I included, that would be, oh, yoga is just meditation or really quiet and not moving a lot. But like you're saying, there's different types. And
Yeah, and
someone like me, without really looking into it, I don't know those different types.
See, I can't sometimes you'll go to a class where you'll have an instructor that they'll want you to hold a pose for 5 breaths, 10 breaths kind of thing. Oh, we're gonna be in downward dog for 10 breaths. Um, I'm like, fuck that. That's not for me. Right? Like
It's
I
no,
can't stay for 10 breaths. I can give you five.
yeah,
I can give you five, but 10 is pushing it.
yeah,
Five is my max.
100%. Yep.
And so for me, it's very much, but I think that's also because I know I'm not going to hold a pose for 10 breaths, it allows me to, when I do get into whatever it is I'm doing, side angle pose or whatever,
Hmm.
to push it that much harder because I know that it's temporary, right?
Temporary. Yeah,
It's
that's exactly right.
temporary, right?
Yeah.
And like what you're saying, if you have a good instructor, you will start the class and it is just they're going to take you through a series
Mm.
and they're going to build on it and build on it and build on it. So by the end, you're doing 20 poses, but you've built on it
But you've
right through
built on
the
it. That's
hour,
exactly right. And you've
right?
remembered them. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like I said, it's taken me years to get to this point to be able to say, yeah, when I step on my mat, that is where I am. But I do think that doing some sort of physical activity daily, if possible, is
Yeah.
does wonders for your mental health. It really
Oh,
does.
100%. Because you notice when you don't do those things that you regularly do, whether it's yoga or running or boxing or whatever it might be, when you don't do it, you notice whether you've had a couple of days where you're not able to get out and do it for whatever reason. And, if there's benefits from that, why wouldn't you do it? If there's benefits to feel better, then, you know, why wouldn't somebody do it? Opposed to, oh, I just, each to their own. But instead of, I'm just, no, I'm comfortable in my bubble. I don't want to exercise, or I don't want to exercise any more than I do walking every day or whatever it might be. But, you know, it, it's sort of, yeah, I don't know. It's the same with cannabis for me because I know that if I have it, then I feel better, whether it's pain or whether I needed my mind to calm down to be able to think clearly. Um, I, yeah, I don't know. I
I
don't know
say
if
that about
exercise is the same as cannabis and in the way that it.
I was going to say I say that about CBD in the sense that I take it and then I feel great and then I forget to take it or I stop taking it or whatever, money gets tight so I don't take it or, whatever the
Yeah,
reason is that I don't take it. And then I start to get grumpy and irritable and I'm like, "Rah." And I'm like, well, why?
see, right? Yeah,
And then
yeah.
I'm like, oh, it's
Oh,
because I haven't had my CBD for a while. I haven't gone to yoga in a while. Yeah, they go hand in hand, right?
yeah,
They really do. They go hand in hand. It's part of well-being and balancing your health holistically.
exactly. Yeah, that's me at the minute is, healing, there's no cure for the things that I currently live with, but there is I'm all about reading all the time and researching. It's part of the blessing and the curse of having ADHD. It doesn't stop, but I'm passionate about, like, if it's, what I'm interested in, then I will read and research and try and find out everything that I can. But me at the moment, and my 12-year-old is hating it, by the way. because we're focusing a lot on nutrition right now. And he hates it because he just wants crap in his lunchbox to take to school. Or he wants takeaway, or, he wants a soft drink or whatever. But I'm really trying to, heal my body as holistically as possible. And yes, there's some Western therapies and medicines that I currently do, but eliminating sort of them one by one. And again, this is not for everyone. This is what I do. But life has only gotten better for me. Managing, as much as my health and well-being as holistically and natural as possible. And then educating my kids on that as much as that drives one of them mad. Because I didn't have that education as a child. I didn't have that education as a teenager or even a young adult. So, I've been diagnosed with more things than you could possibly imagine. I'm 34 years old. My grandparents, who passed away in the last 8 years, only had cancer in their last, year or two. Otherwise, completely fit and healthy. And I think it all starts with what we put in our bodies, what we put on our bodies, what we have around us. And, I don't think I could advocate and take medicinal cannabis the way that I do and have all the effects that I do, and then be someone who, drinks and smokes. See, I did used to smoke, but smokes cigarettes or does illegal drugs or eats, takeaway and processed food. I don't like it. Kind of goes, again, another thing that goes hand in hand. I think cannabis has opened up my world in a completely different way than I thought it would, and be like how I once was with, nutrition, exercise, pharmaceutical medication, no matter what it is. It's opened up that pathway to many things, and I'm medically a lot better, and mentally I'm a lot happier living this way.
I love it though, right? Like
I know.
I totally get that in the sense that here in the last few years, um, yeah, like it has just been a conscious shift as far as taking better care of myself, adjusting my
Mm.
diet, being more conscious about, as weird as it sounds, about alcohol. Like I've
Yep.
I was never much of a drinker back in Canada, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm more of a social drinker, but for whatever reason when we moved here, there's just something about a cold, crisp beer
Yeah.
on
Yep.
a Queensland afternoon in
On a
summer.
hot summer day. Yep.
Yeah,
It is.
it's
It is. It's
so
there's
good.
so good.
I don't know what it is. And I noticed, yeah, like I definitely started drinking alcohol more. And I think that's also part of the culture here. We're
Yeah.
drinkers for sure.
Mm-hmm.
You're catching up with mates and you're having beer, and that's just kind of how it is. But here in the last probably the last year or so, um, I don't really drink much anymore. I
Um,
tend to reach for sparkling water.
yeah,
That
I'm the same
that's
as you.
and I never thought I was gonna be that. Oh, can I get
Yeah.
a San
Yeah.
Pellegrino, please? Like I never
Yeah.
thought that
Yeah.
would be me, but now that's totally me.
Yeah.
And I bring it up because like I don't remember the last time I had anything to drink, to be honest. But then this past weekend, my teenager went away for a tennis tournament, and it was my husband and I, and so we were like totally had a date night, right?
Yeah.
And I had a glass of wine with dinner for date night, and it's also our kiddo's birthday, so we decided that we were gonna like paint his room while he was
Yeah.
gone that weekend. And so it was like all hands on deck. But of course my kid has to pick like some purple color that he wants for his room. And so of course it wasn't one coat of paint, it was like three coats of paint. And it was like
Yeah.
all hands on deck. And I was like, oh, we so need a beer at the end of this. But like,
Yeah.
so I didn't have a lot to drink. I think I had three drinks in total, like two beers and a glass of wine over the weekend, like from Friday to Sunday kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, but man, Monday I felt like shit.
Yep.
I felt like shit. And
It's all
you
the
better
sugar.
believe Monday afternoon, I was like, check it out. I'm getting the biggest zit at the end of my nose.
No way. See?
And I'm like, that's so from the
It
alcohol.
is because that's the thing. Like, I'm not condemning alcohol, like really,
I'm not either. I'm not either. I'm
if
not
you,
hating
but
on it.
and I was never, I'm exactly the same as you. I was never a big drinker. My friends would go day drinking and Alice would be over here going, nope, it interferes with this or that. Or no, I can't. It's weird drinking in the middle of the day or on
I
the
always
weekend or whatever.
I always bought the weed like that. Like
Yeah.
we'd go like tubing, like in Texas. Like one of the really fun things to do in the summer is to go quote unquote
Yeah.
tubing down the river.
Yeah.
And like my friends would all bring like cases of beer and like the Eskies and everything else. And I was like, yeah, it's cool, man. I got the joints.
Yeah,
I got
but
the
that's me
joints
now. That's
rolling.
me
That's
now.
me.
It like I didn't have anyone bringing the joints. I'm like, damn, maybe I would have been a hell of a lot better when I
That
was
was me though.
18. Someone bringing the joints.
That was me, 100%. Like, don't get me wrong, I was also the person though that would volunteer because you would get we're so on a little tangent here, but you would get one of the inner tubes would have a
Yep.
bottom in it. And so you'd get one with a bottom in it because
Don't tell
that's
me
what you
you'd
would
fill
put
it
your
all up with all the
well,
drinks.
well, no, you'd put your esky in that tube so it would
Yeah,
sit because it had a
that's what
bottom,
we did.
right? But I, again, being the smart individual that I was, would always volunteer to be the one to like tie themselves to the esky because it would be the slower because you'd move
Oh, but
slower.
we had the same thought. That is exact. I came up with that idea too. Was tying me to
Yeah,
the esky that had the dry things in it, like people's
yes.
cigarettes or
And then you
people's
would, well, no, no, no,
phones.
no, 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 no. You would have to
No.
carry your own stuff.
Ah, right.
Just the beer was in the esky, right? I wasn't responsible for cigarettes and money and all.
Okay.
No, that's your own responsibility. But like you'd have it on a rope and you could like pull it into you,
Pull it into you.
right?
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, like because I'd be with the esky, I would just throw my joints in there and I'd be like ready to go.
Yeah.
Let's
Just
do
pull the
this.
esky up to you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be
Perfect.
ready to, and then you're floating along and you don't have to hold anything,
I
zero
know. Would you
responsibility.
believe that that is how I spent, way before becoming a mother, summer weekends out the river, in my hometown, doing the same thing. Every like couple of eskies just floating around in the river, but tied to somebody's boat, blow up boat, and just don't have to carry anything except, like you said, weed in one hand or something, drink in the other, and that's
Yeah,
it.
good times.
I
Being
know.
young and irresponsible before you had kids.
I know. It's fun. Good
Good times.
times. Fun
Good
times.
times. Yeah. This is probably an excellent spot to end the podcast.
Yeah.
Remembering good times.
Yeah.
It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Alice. We've covered so many topics. We've covered
Thank
lots and
you.
lots
Yeah,
of
it was
things.
really great. Sorry, there was a few bumps there.
Ah, we're fine. I enjoyed it. I
Yeah.
had a great time. I like to end every one of my podcasts though with a tip or a call to action or just some
Hmm.
piece of advice. So, Alice, do you have something you'd like to leave the Alices with?
All the Alice's in the world.
Leave all the Alices. Let's try that again. Alice, do you have something that you would like to leave the listeners with?
Um, you know, like what I was saying before with storytelling, and if you want to advocate, because we always need more advocates, but I think it is just don't stop telling your stories. Even when you feel that it might be falling on deaf ears, or, you know, you're not getting anywhere, or you have imposter syndrome for a minute and you think, oh, no, no one will listen, or it doesn't matter. It does matter. You know, there's more people listening to our stories every day than we will ever realize in all parts of the world. And I think the only way that we can change and make productive change is by continuing to talk and speak.
Yeah, no, I think I think Beautiful words to part on.
Oh,
I do.
thank you.
And that's a wrap. Don't forget to email me your rapid fire question suggestions. Until we meet again, friends, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to listen. And remember, be careful of the toes you step on today, for they could be connected to the asses you have to kiss tomorrow.